Since we talked about being late, let's talk about some strategies that you can use to change that about yourself. And even if you feel like you don't have to change that about yourself, using these strategies will allow you to increase the amount of books you read throughout the day, or podcasts you listen throughout the day, or even having more, quick midday conversations with your family or friends. We're talking about buffer time. Buffer time is all about adding extra time for the things you're doing. Let's think of this. Imagine you're commuting to work and you hit unexpected traffic. Or imagine also you're going to work or school and you spill some coffee on yourself. Or what about if you forgot something? You just left your house and you forgot something and now you have to go back. If you have that time constraint, you're in a pickle. And that's why you would use buffer time. If your commute takes 30 minutes, pretend it takes 45. If your class time takes 90, pretend it takes 100 minutes. If you're getting ready to go out with your partner and some other friends and your partner is always late, prepare for that, at least mentally. You don't have to say it, but at least mentally you're ready for, the delay. But more than that, there are a few benefits that you get when you start adding buffer time in your life. One, when it comes to time, very little will bother you. You know that example I just gave you about your partner? Well, if you're ready for that delay, you're not going to be upset. You're not going to ruin the night because you guys are late. You're just going to be ready. You're prepared. Two, you will start arriving places early or on time whenever you're by yourself. 3, you won't be late for meetings. 4, and this is a big one, you won't overtask yourself. Because whenever you add extra buffer time, you obviously have less time throughout your day to do other things. Hence, you're not going to be overbooking yourself and being overwhelmed by it. 5, I also linked below an article talking about attention residual. Here's what it means. Your brain can't just go from one task to the other without, breathing out. So this period between task 1 and task 2 takes about 20 minutes. So by adding this buffer time, you allow your brain to breathe out, and consequentially and unconsciously, you might even become more productive because now you're not wasting those 20 minutes trying to force yourself into being focused. You're allowing your brain to go from task A to task B, and then by the time you're ready to go to task B, your brain is ready to focus again. And number 6, the fudge ratio, which is something that the article also mentions. This is a ratio between the time that you thought a task would take and the time it actually took. So imagine you thought something would take 30 minutes and it took 50. Now you would use those ratios and that difference for you to start thinking about your buffer time. Now, this seems a little bit of an overkill for me, seems like too much analysis. However, this may work for you. Again, all the ideas that I'm giving you here, some of them are going to work for you, some of them won't. So hence why I'm still talking about this regardless. Okay, but what about the hidden benefits of buffer time? Here's a trick. If you have to be somewhere by 1 p.m., but then you added this buffer time and you arrive to say at 12:40. Now you have about 15 to 20 minutes before, get out of the car and just go do your thing. You have that time to do whatever you can or whatever you want. You can listen to a podcast. You can read a book. I used this time in college to brainstorm, courses like this, or even brainstorm things for thesis. Turns out that the stuff that you can get done in 10 minutes is kind of insane. And think of the book example. If you read for 10 minutes, 4 or 5 times a day, it's almost a whole hour. Now, say you don't want to do any of those things. Say you don't want to read a book, you don't want to listen to a podcast. You could instead reach out to someone you love. Send them a text, give them a call, FaceTime them. Obviously, try to be mindful of however the person likes to be contacted. But turns out that people like when you just send them a message and like, hey, I was just thinking of you. How you doing? How's life? What's good? And even if not, you could still incorporate that time to a quick stretch, a quick walk, or whatever. Now you have those minutes to just do whatever your heart desires. 2, another hidden benefit of buffer time is the fact that you're not going to have as much anxiety because you're not going to be freaking out from going from place A to place B. And then that leads us to number 3, which is safety. Because say you're driving or say you're running somewhere, you're going to be more conscious about, where you're going, what you're doing. You're not going to have to rush. So if you're driving, you're not going to drive like a maniac. 4, people won't feel like you're rushing them to be done. Were you ever in a situation that you were talking to somebody and this somebody was just staring at the door, and at some point you're like, hey, do you need to run somewhere? And usually it turns out they do. The opposite way, though, which is a lot more interesting, is when you ask them the same thing, and they're like, no, I got time for you. And whenever you get that answer, you feel great. It's like, wait, you have time for me? That's nice. This feels nice. Don't forget that the goal of this course isn't to turn you into a robot. Again, I would love for you to be more human, more approachable. You're planning to have more time for other people. At the end of the day, one of two things will happen. One, you use all of your buffer time. Two, you haven't used it all. If you haven't, you can use that extra time to, do small tasks, say washing the dishes, taking the trash out. But please make sure that the main task, that task that you added the buffer time for, that main task is still a priority and you still got it done. Don't try to add small things into the buffer time and you forget to do the main thing. So now you're probably seeing the connection between the last video of talking about commuting and then now this one. On the next video, we're gonna talk about another layer that you can add on to this.